Today, I'm going to be reacting to EXP's Historian and Armor Expert Reacts to Warhammer's animations. Please go support their channel, and the original video will be in the description. Thank you. Welcome to A Christian Reacts. I do things a little bit differently. I do react, but I also bring biblical commentary that is pretty close to the lore on the screen. I also do a Warhammer 40k lore in the Bible series. So if you want to check that out, go to my watch page on the shorts section. Alright, let's go ahead and get this started.
This is Dr. Toby Capwell, curator, author,
Hello.
historical advisor, and all-round expert on historical arms and armor. And I'm your host, Dave Jewett, and today we're breaking down a selection of scenes from the shows of Warhammer TV.
Okay, so I will be bringing up kind of this armor of God, right? Because not a lot of people talk about the implications of it and what they are, right? Like the belt of truth, what is that, and stuff like that. So I will be going through that. Anyways.
Including Pariah Nexus, Tides, and Angels of Death.
Vulcan lives.
The modern Astartes armor has this very distinctive neck plate, or this, it's like a standing flange that protects the neck from the breastplate. It's not a million miles away from what you see on bomb disposal armor.
Yeah.
They have similar neck defenses. It feels like they thought, what if we had an army of Joan of Arcs? Joan of Arc seems like it really she could be a source of inspiration here.
Yeah, probably. That's probably it. You're probably right on that, sir.
Be sure to check out our Patreon for a longer, deeper, extended edition of this episode, as well as dozens of other Director's Cut episodes. And be sure to check the links in the description below to find Toby's upcoming book, An Armorer's Album, which is now available for pre-order. We hope you enjoy the episode, but now, without further ado, it is over to Toby.
Let's go. All right, so before we get into that, so I'll bring up this. This is Ephesians 6:12, or what I bring up all the time, right? Or a level starting to 11. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, like these are, but against principalities. These are these gods, right? The ones that are over the nations, because you'll see, in the Old Testament stuff, it says that God gave pretty much the world over to these gods because they didn't want to worship him, right? So there's these, fallen angels, but then you got Genesis 6 scenario, which are the Nephilim and it says these men of renown, right? These demigods. So you have these who are being worshipped, and then you got here. I'll bring this up in First Enoch. So First Enoch. I lost my train of thought there. Hold on. First Enoch. Oh, yes. Okay. Sorry about that. So we have even the angels themselves are transforming themselves, right, to get these people to worship these demigods or these demons, right, the Nephilim. We see that here. Okay, so this is Enoch chapter 19. And Uriel said to me, here shall stand the angels who have connected themselves with women, and their spirits assuming many different forms, so they can transform into anything, guys. So keep that in mind. And are defying mankind and should lead them astray into sacrificing unto demons. This may tick some people off, but Joseph Smith, Paul says to test the spirits to see if they be of God. And how you do that? Did Jesus come in the flesh? Did the word come into the flesh, right? If they say no, sorry about that. Let me turn that off. And then they're not. And what did this angel bring to Joseph Smith? Something different than what the Bible says, right? Like I said, this may take some people off, but I'm here to bring the truth, right? So, anyways. So they can transform into anything. Okay. Mankind shall lead them astray into sacrificing unto demons as gods. Right? So these are, the principalities and against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. So you need this armor, right? This hedge of protection, like in Job, right? Once the hedge of protection was taken away, Satan was able to do whatever he wanted. All right. So we're going to start with this with, stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth. Right? Truth. This means, it's line upon line, precept upon precept, truth upon truth, right? When it comes to the Bible. Like, you have to understand Genesis 6 to understand the rest of the Bible. If you do not understand Genesis 6, you do not have the truth of what the Bible's trying to tell you, right? And you don't understand it. What David, Goliath, this 9 foot to 13, probably 13 feet tall giant. And he had 5 other brothers that were either the same height or even taller, right? You see, when they go into the promised land, they're saying that the sons of Anak, of the giants, we were like grasshoppers in their sight, right? So if you don't know that, you do not understand the Bible. So this truth holds everything together, right? Back in the day, your belt held everything together. But anyways, I'm sorry, that took long.
Was there when he painted this? An oddity among his schematics and calculations.
You know all about Horus and his heresy by now?
I do. I've read most of it. I'm finishing up The Siege of Terra, but I've read every book, every novella, every e-book only short release. I've read pretty much all.
Doing better than I did.
It's so funny to think back when we first started working.
Anyone want to give me some money so I can do that? I'm poor. That's all right.
Together on us that. Have you heard this thing called Warhammer?
Yeah, well, if you're going to do something,
yes,
you got to do it, right? And I felt like this
is
interesting. This is something I should know about. So when I decide that, I'm going to go do it. I'm better informed than I used to be.
You're better informed about the Horus heresy than I am now.
I hear that. Oh man, the stuff that I look over is a lot, but anyways, I'm still way behind.
Well, see that shot right there. When you see the tanks coming in like that, that's a perfect illustration of why it's important to have armor. When there's all that stuff flying around, when the Marines come in, one of the main reasons you wear substantial plate armor, in its
like in Job, the last reaction I did, I brought up Job, right? You have Satan coming in with wind and hitting him with boils and and stuff like that. This supernatural stuff, right? It's why God says you got to have this armor. Every day you got to put it on. You got to know what the truth is, right? The next one is the breastplate of righteousness, and we'll get into that here in a second. But anyways.
The real world is not so much to protect you against the immediate primary threat, but a really important role of armor that we often forget about is protecting you against all of the incidental threats that you can't defend yourself against. You're fighting one guy or a couple of guys in that battle, the people facing you on the front line. But what about the arrow that flies in over there? Or the guy you just stepped
I actually have something for that, but I'll bring that up.
on, who stabs you in the leg, or someone who hits you in the back of the head because they're fighting someone else and they're not paying attention to what they're doing, or they don't care. All of that incidental contact. Warhammer is or 40K, 30K is reintroducing effectively full plate armor along.
Okay, so yeah, of course, in that same Ephesians 6:16, above all, hold on, let me get to there real quick. So I guess I'm moving up a little bit, but oh well. So above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye should be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. Right? So you're able to take it on. And like he says, you're going to be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. And you got to have all these armor pieces on, right? But anyways.
Alongside modern weapons or futuristic weapons that resemble modern weapons in one way or another. And they show you why their soldiers have to wear that, you know, with the environment like that, with just the sheer volume of stuff flying around. It's an environment you can't.
I've always said, man, in a sci-fi, you got to have war. You know, something to sink your teeth in and to go for, right, and root for. That's a perfect sci-fi, in my opinion.
Can't work in without that protection. Again, we've talked before about the whole idea that the past was more advanced than the future. That's one element I like about it. But then from a design point of view, when you're having to come up with a version,
that actually is pretty true. When you look at boats way before, they're a lot more sturdier and, you know, sometimes bigger than the ones you get into like medieval times or even before that. Like it's crazy how that works. And we know about Genesis 6, right? Well, in my opinion, they had technology, right? Because you have this verse here. Let me bring this up. Okay, there is nothing new under the sun. New under the sun. KJV. That's kind of cool how he said that. Okay. Ecclesiastes 1:9. Okay. The thing that hath been, it is that which shall be. And that which is done is that which shall be done. And there is no new thing under the sun. What's that saying there is the technology that we have now was already before, right? And then you see here, well, yes, there's aliens in the Bible. Let me show you. Like frogs. Okay. So Revelation 16:13, and I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. For they are spirits of devils, working miracles. Ready, pay attention to this part, because this is exactly what they're doing. Which go forth unto the kings of the earth, and to the whole world, and gather them to the battle of the great day of Almighty. So they're giving them technology to fight against God. And I'll say this, go listen to Ronald Reagan's speech and, you know, think to yourself, I wonder who he's talking about. But anyways.
Version of 40K that is supposed to be more advanced, but also it needs to look antiquated. It needs to look like it came before this other stuff. And that combination of saying, look, it's hyper advanced, but it's also old fashioned. It's kind of like steampunk in a way, you know, the Victorian with, you know, a spacecraft capable of reaching the moon, or the Victorian with a time machine or whatever. It's like the old Space Marines, but with weapons we can only dream of, and we have no idea how they work now. And that's the story that the design has to somehow bring across. How do you come up with something that looks high-tech but also antiquated? And like the use.
And a lot of the technology they had, you know, from STCs and all that, you know, and just old technology. But anyways.
Of they're bringing back the Mark II armors, which I love, and they've redesigned them, but in a way I think that's very sympathetic to the spirit of it. The helmets look like medieval, or they're kind of vaguely referring to medieval 13th century helms with the slots and the, you know, and that's well, a lot of them are based kind of off that, you know, the Black Templars, right? And then you got the Dark Angels, you know, which kind of have that, what people would say, you know, that angelic helmet look, or, you know, and stuff like that. But anyways, it's a very clever thing to do, because we think of that medieval great helm as older fashioned than the more advanced plate armor of the 15th and 16th centuries. You know, most people, you know, if they have an awareness of it, they'd be able to put your Crusader type armor before your Renaissance type armor. You know, most people have some idea of what's earlier and what's later.
Even as the technology in universe advances, it seems to refer to historical technological advancements, like,
well, because they build on each other, right? You know, the further you go, you're going to build on that foundation, but you get better and better, and you build on that, and you get better.
The beakies. I love the beakies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beaky
That's
boys.
sort of reminiscent of a hound skull.
Them beaky
Totally.
boys.
Totally. A very distinctive form. I mean, it's an iconic form. You reproduce that, it becomes iconic again. And it is in the history of 40K, going back to Rin's world. Those helmets are there.
And a lot of it's probably because they're reminiscing of these gods, right? Those principalities that the Bible talks about. I brought up in my Lord of Change lore video. Oh, by the way, I do lore videos now. I'm bringing those back. And it's Warhammer 40K meets the Bible. I forgot to bring that up at the beginning, but oh well. So I'm bringing those back. So that way there's more videos on this channel. But anyways, you see the Lords of Change, these bird-like, right? Well, you'll see in the Bible, here. Let's go here. Babylon. Full bird. Okay, KJV. If you want to check that out, I just posted it yesterday from the time I made this video, which would be Sunday, right here. So Revelation 18:2. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen. Is fallen, and has become a habitation of devils, and a hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird, right? We have Ra, who's this bird-like creature, right? Who can transform himself into a man and a bird type thing, right? So, interesting.
From the beginning, because they're so iconic, but they were originally as well. I mean, look at the thickness of those plates. That's what I love. If you needed a plate armor on a human body to protect you against high velocity firearms shells or cannon shells or everything else this armor has to protect, that's the sort of thickness it would have to be. And there it is. And they can explain that they can carry that thickness because they've got artificial muscles and the whole powered suit thing.
Well, it's as thick as tank armor.
It's got to be. But if it's going to do what they want it to do in the setting, there's a believability that's built into it when they show you the armor is that thick. No knight's armor is ever even close to that. No. The thickest you ever get on a 15th century armor is 6 millimeters on a field armor. And that's just on the visor where you're going to be getting hit in the face. The front of a breastplate might be 4 millimeters thick top.
Well, humans are only so strong. That's why, the Space Marines needed a gene seed and, more organs and stronger and all that. But anyways.
But it gets rapidly thinner at the sides. But you're right, it's tank type armor on a human body, but it all kind of hangs together. This is what the armor does, so this is what it has to look like.
Well, you obviously a massive fan of the Horus Heresy, and you favor the heretical Thousand Sons.
I'm a kind of a weird one because I'm a Thousand Sons.
I've already talked about the Horus Heresy, what I think it is. It's Lucifer's rebellion, stuff like that. I won't get into that because I talk about it all the time. So, anyways.
Devotee who can't stand Magnus.
Well, this would be interesting then, because since I equate you as a Thousand Sons fan,
yeah,
at least in 40K, Games Workshop actually sent us some Joy Toys.
Oh, really?
And
that's nice.
Can I have one?
Considering you're a Thousand Sons fan, I thought, what better Joy Toy to pass on to you?
Oh, wow, cool. Yeah, Space Wolves. The funny thing is, my 13, soon to be 14-year-old is the biggest Space Wolves fan.
That's got to hurt as a Thousand
world.
Sons fan.
So it's a fractious household sometimes. So he's putting like body parts of Thousand Sons on the bases of his figures, and I'm putting Space Wolf body parts on the bases of my figures. It's quite funny.
Nice.
Thank you. That's really nice.
You're welcome.
That's really nice. I may not keep it very long in my household, but that's very. He will be outraged.
He won't burn frostbite. He'll just sit quietly on the shelf.
Yeah. No, the Space Wolves have some great stories in 30K, and they have grown on me. They definitely have. Thank you. That's very nice.
If you're enjoying this episode, there is a longer, deeper, extended edition over on our Patreon.
Okay.
But if Patreon isn't for you, you can now support EXP by picking up a piece of our hot new merch over at expvideo.info. Although by becoming a patron, you not only help support the work we do here, but you'll also be able to watch all of our previous episodes and get each and every...
This guy reminds me of that MMO guy. I think he's like... Oh, I don't think he's Australian. But he does MMOs. But he kind of reminds me. He sounds a lot like him too. I can't remember him. Anyways.
future episode 1 week early. Each patron massively helps support the work we do here at EXP, but whether you join the Patreon or watch along on YouTube, I want to say thank you for watching, liking, commenting, subscribing, being part of this journey. But now, I'll get back to the video.
Oh, wait. Oh, you know what?
Give unto me your strength.
Boop.
Lend me
Gotta
your
like.
patience. Forgive my weakness.
Okay. So let's go over this breastplate of righteousness. Okay. So we have, stand therefore with your loins girded about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness. What is this? So I'm going to bring this up. Okay, this is the patience of the saints. Okay, so here's Revelation 14:12. Here's the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God, right? This is how you do it. Love God and treat others the way you want to be treated, right? Those 10 commandments. And follow the ways that God has set out, right? And the faith of Jesus. So it's keep the commandments of God and have the faith of Jesus Christ, right? Let's go even further. Commandments on your heart. So your actions, right? Your now it doesn't say that this is the salvation of God, right? This just helps to show that you are a child of God, right? And it's just like Titus says, it's not by your works, whatever, but faith without works is dead faith, he says, right? But anyways. Right. Okay. So right here. Deuteronomy 6:6. These commandments that I give you today. Well, let me go to the KJV. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart. Written here, right? This is why Paul says, to circumcise your heart. Who cares about the thing downstairs, right? It's your heart, right? The breastplate of righteousness, right? Which is Jesus, right? Because you don't get to heaven without Jesus. But here, even Jesus says to keep his commandments, right here. If you love me. So John 14:15. If ye love me, keep my commandments. Okay. Breastplate of righteousness. Gotta remember, your actions will let these things in, right? These devils and these demons and stuff, and such. And even here, he says, like the mark of the beast, right hand, forehead. Check this out. Same stuff here, right? Deuteronomy 6:8. So 2 verses after that, right? And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy hand, and they shall be as frontlets between thy eyes. What is the mark of the beast? Same thing, isn't it? Because you're doing what the beast wants and following his commandments, his ways, right? You're not following God's ways. This is how Satan does. He twists things, right? He can't create something new, so he twists it and perverts it. Anyways, this is going to be a long one, guys. I apologize.
This is one of the Warhammer Plus animations, Pariah Nexus.
The Sisters of Silence are really, not the Sisters of Silence, the
Adeptus Sororitas.
Adeptus Sororitas, Sisters of Battle. They're really
I haven't seen this.
interesting characters too.
Oh, no?
Right? Sometimes
I take that back because it's with that salamander guy. Got, you know, he gets his arm cut off and all that. So I think I have seen that. So I take that back.
it's with 40K, it seems like the inspiration for a faction or
And I think they're going up against the Necrons, right? This was a while ago.
you know, an army or whatever is sometimes found in.
I don't have Warhammer Plus, so I haven't seen all this stuff. I think I've seen the Angels of Death, but that's really about it. I haven't seen Ties. I think I have seen Pariah Nexus, but yeah, I don't have Warhammer Plus.
In a single character, in some literary character that
Let me know
brings
if you
a
do,
source of
how
inspiration
you
that
like
then
it.
gets expanded. And obviously, you know, with the combination of the image of a woman, a female warrior in armor, which historically was fantastically rare, not totally unknown, but rare. And also the Gothic architecture that, I mean, it's throughout 40K, but is
I guess you can't say, I don't know if she was necessarily in battle, but there was a character named Deborah in the Bible, and she was the ruler. Well, basically, you know, a judge, but she told Israel what to do. She was a prophetess. Yes, women can be prophets, by the way, in the Bible. And because there's Miriam, right, Aaron's sister, who was a prophetess, which means inspired of God, by God, right? Anyways, Barak, her general, Deborah's general, would not go anywhere without her commanding. So she was the commanding of the armies as well. And what's interesting about her is she strategically fought a battle at the Hill of Megiddo. And it's like there's the reason why God chooses this area. It's like the veil is kind of thin there. So yeah. And then he comes in, or like there's this portal there or something, right? So it's very interesting. Anyways.
kind of synonymous with the Sisters of Battle in particular. It feels like they thought, what if we had an army of Joan of Arcs? Joan of Arc seems like it really she could be a source of inspiration here, especially with the use of the fleur-de-lis, which isn't exclusively French, but it's iconically medieval French. They always make me think of her. But in the stories, one of the most common kind of reoccurring themes the stories ponder is the nature of godhood, the nature of divinity, and this question: if a creature has powers that are indistinguishable from divinity, then isn't it by definition divine? I mean, what is a god anyway? Someone like Sanguinius says he's not a god. I'm just a genetically engineered creature. But
well, God would be able to create himself and be immortal, but create everything, right? And when it comes to the word God, really, in the sense of the word, they are. Maybe not divine, but the word God means mighty one, right? And when you see God, it's El of the Elohim, right? Because you'll see Elohim, it could mean the angels, right? But when it talks about God, El Elyon, right? And all of that means the God of the mighty ones. So he is the top one, right? Nothing that happens goes by him, or everything that happens goes by him, whether it's bad or good, whether he sets up evil kings or good kings, it's all by him, right? He's the one who controls it all. That may sound bad, but that's just the way it is, right? And it's all to get him to the day of the Lord, which is this battle against good and evil, right? The day where good and evil collide for the last time. But anyways, that's what it's all for. So he's getting all throughout time. And plus, it with the people, right? If the people are doing terrible, he sets up terrible kings, right? If they're doing good, he sets up good kings. Or if he wants something done, he'll set up a good king, right? Like David, and he'll change it, right? Saul is an example of that. Saul had it, and he didn't want to go through with it, we'll just say, right? So he picked David. Anyways.
But come on, I mean, I love that contemplation of divinity and also devotion, faith. All of the issues that come up very quickly and very naturally when you ponder the augmentation of a human, when human beings become more powerful than they are in their natural state. What does that do to their identity? What does that do to their role in society?
Well, if you think about it, look at Nimrod, and all these people who, Nimrod, it says he became a mighty one, which in my opinion, which means he became a Nephilim. So he started to gain all these powers and all this, and he became a tyrant, right? He's better than you. So that's where and you look at the Space Marines, most of the Space Marines have this attitude, right? But anyways.
Other people see them, the whole concept of transhuman fear that the Space Marines have, they promote this kind of instinctual dread, transhuman dread, I think, is it called, that mortal humans naturally react.
Well, they say that in the Horus Heresy, Primarchs and the Emperor especially, like, they hurt to look at. Normal people look at these figures and it's like we're looking into the sun.
Yeah. But that's, again, it's playing with this this concept of godhood. What is a god? At what point do you become a god? And the God that denies himself is the God that you must devote yourself to. And the real gods are the Messiah, the true Messiah denies his divinity, all that kind of thing. I've always thought that those kinds of questions.
That's what Jesus did. Before he became incarnate in man, right? He was the Word. And he was God. You know what I mean? It's kind of a cool dichotomy because you have all these three, right? You have Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Or it says here, get there. Father. Yeah. Right. So 1 John 5:7. There are three that bear record in heaven. The Father, the Word, right? We see that the Word, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, right? Right here. For there are three that bear record in heaven. The Father, the Word, and the Holy Ghost. These three are one. There are three, but they're one. So kind of an interesting dichotomy going there. And they all have their own minds. Jesus, right? He's talking to the Father. But yet he is God, right? But anyways, he took off that and became a man. So, anyways.
Go hand in hand with armor and what armor represents culturally, artistically. It's very appropriate that they bring that. It's very perceptive that they bring those kind of questions up. That's what gives 40K its depth.
Yeah, okay, I've seen the Pariah. That's right. Okay.
I love that these animations let us see some of like the heads-up display of Space Marines and other.
What
other
are they
factions.
seeing? That's described in the stories. You sometimes get descriptions of what they're seeing, and it can be hard to visualize that for yourself sometimes. The gas mask will never fail to make something look creepy, will it?
Yeah, I love the creep aesthetic.
Well, the 1916 pattern Stahlhelms, the earliest version of the pretty iconic German 20th century infantry helmet, they're pretty futuristic for their time. Sometimes if something looks futuristic when it's created, it stays that way.
So let it be done.
So There's a really nice detail here after everything this character's been through, and there's a war has already raged, and she's just been through combat. You can hear the machinery in her armor struggling as she falls to her knee. You get a sense that those servers are trying to keep her up, and she falls down anyway.
And the damage on the armor, I've always thought damage tells a story. And when someone's wearing armor that's covered in damage, it's a testament to the fact they've been out there fighting and incurring that damage. If you've got someone in pristine, perfect armor, they've obviously not done anything in it. It naturally, the most beautiful, the custodies or whoever, they're
this goes with the armor of God, right? If your armor isn't damaged, you're not effective, right? But anyways.
Armor gets trashed when they fight in it.
I really love just the sound of a Space Marine walking. Such an imposing sound, just with every footstep booming the crunch.
But it would be if you're just around horses. On the right ground, a big horse goes by, it makes the ground shake, and you hear it.
A very Salamander's thing to do, to remove your helmet to make a normal citizen feel more comfortable.
Sensitive. It's the same reason modern militaries don't
Vulcan
want to
lives.
cover the faces of their soldiers, because modern soldiers often have peacekeeping roles, or they need to have the local people on their side. So you can't cover the face. It's got to be relatable. Even though covering the face would be a good idea in a lot of situations, it's not worth the cost. In this case, the human cost of communication, relatability. The salamanders are good guys, aren't they?
Yes.
Well, the spectrum of Space Marines.
They're good guys who burn people alive with flamethrowers.
Well, something we've talked about a lot before is just how much that changes the perception of the individual from either a knight taking their helmet off or a Space Marine taking their helmet off. You see the human side once more, and they become much less alien or much less
robotic.
Yeah.
But everything's in the face, in the eyes. If you take the image of an armored knight, and you put the visor down, there's no humanity. But in some pictures, I have a friend who takes a lot of photographs of us when we're doing, armored fighting seminars and things. And she's really good at catching the light so that you can see the eyes of the...
So real quick. So verse 15. And your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Of course, we all know the gospel of peace is Jesus came down, and died for you. There's nothing you can do, to get you into heaven, but having Jesus, right? The Word. And we're going to see here, he's also the sword. There's an offensive weapon with, I'll bring that up, might as well. Okay. Right. And the sword of the Spirit, this is verse 17. The sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God. Well, who's also the Word? Jesus, right? The Word. And he is the Word of God, because you'll see in the Old Testament, you'll see this angel of the Lord show up, but you also see the word of the Lord came unto me, saying. So this word is telling them and dictating God's word, who is God as well, right? So it's kind of cool, that Jesus, the Word, God himself, of course, right, was dictating the Bible. Jesus, when he says, if you love me, keep my commandments, Jesus was the one giving the commandments at Mount Sinai. So,
the person inside the helmet, if you go through and look at her photographs, Louise Clayton Hatch on Facebook, she takes photos at all of our seminars. You'll find so many images where you can see the eyes through the helmet, and that changes it again. It's like not one or the other. It's like the inhuman face, but you can see there's something in there, which is a very different image than just the blank robotic side of it. They play with that here. Sometimes when the Space Marine's helmet is damaged and his lens is broken and you can see that there's an eye under there, the same kind of thing. It breaks the barrier.
Boom.
This is the tides.
You're done, son.
It takes place. This episode takes place a little after what we just saw. So Sakan has had a chance to get an ally and a new helmet, but not return to orbit and get an augmetic hand. So you'll see him fight one-handed throughout this episode. And it's really interesting how it changes that dynamic and how he sort of has to rely on the Ultramarine Apothecary. A nice detail is that he's now wearing the skull of a Necron on his belt.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
After dealing with fighting a death mark and everything else in the previous episodes. In fact, I'm not sure if that is a new helmet or just his one repaired, because it was damaged over the left eye.
Yeah.
But there is signs of damage and repair over that lens.
The modern Astartes armor has this very distinctive neck plate, or this. It's like a standing flange that protects the neck from the breastplate. It's not a million miles away from what you see on bomb disposal armor. They have similar neck defenses, but in the Heresy, in the old Heresy armors, they don't have it, and they actually describe the neck area as being really vulnerable, unlike the Mark II armors. And the Astartes learn stabbing each other in the neck. Once they've never had to fight each other, but when they do, they rapidly find the weaknesses in their own equipment. And the neck being a weak area is a theme in the Heresy. And I always really like that, because we've talked before about how difficult it is in the real world to design effective neck protection. They've got these great neck plates. There must have been a time when they didn't have them and they learned that they needed them. It's there. And like certain things with the weapons, it doesn't come up in a tabletop game. It doesn't necessarily really come up in a novel. But when they're animating combat, there's certain immediate physical realities that they have to deal with. And the chainsword, there's an inherent problem with the idea of a chainsword, which is that a chainsaw for cutting down trees is a tool where the rotating teeth are designed to stay in contact with the thing you're cutting. They're basically doing the job of this, right? They're doing that more efficiently and faster. But it's a tool or a weapon, if you will. It's not, chainsaws don't actually work very well as weapons because they have to stay in constant contact with the thing that they're cutting. Whereas a sword is meant to just slice something, a cutting sword anyway, the edge of a sword. It cuts something in a fraction of a second. It only stays in contact with your enemy for a fraction of a second. You don't cut in and leave your sword there. And having to leave your sword on your target is a problem that doesn't really work so well in the reality of the way weapons are used. But here you can see them wrestling with that. Like, they know there's a problem with having to keep your sword there. So how do we find a way to use it so it makes sense? You've immobilized your enemy in some other way, and then you have to have this chained weapon to get through their armor or whatever.
I think it's a good way to illustrate the strength of an opponent as well, or some of their equipment, because a normal human chainsaw will cleave them in two.
Yeah.
As we saw when he was fighting the Death Corps.
Yeah.
But an armored opponent or a Necron, that's when you start to feel the resistance.
Okay. So while we're bringing up swords, so Hebrews 4:12. For the word of God is quick and powerful, and sharper than a two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit, and the joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. So, there you go.
And I think that the animation does a good job of showing that. It's like, this is a tougher opponent, this is more of a threat. That's illustrated through just the use of a sword that every Space Marine has, but just seeing that resistance demonstrates that this is a bigger threat.
I like the concept of a power sword a bit more than a chain sword, because a power sword stays true to what a sword is. They're just making it sharper micromolecular, blah, 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 enhanced with power fields, yada, yada, yada. It's cuttier than a normal cutty thing, but it's still, its dynamics still make sense. But again, Warhammer is always aware of its improbabilities. It's always trying to get the fantasy and the reality to mesh as closely as it can. You look for movement styles where a chainsword might conceivably make some kind of sense, but it's a tough one.
What do you mean?
I'm guessing they're not going to say anything about this, huh?
But nothing about
My
this
guess.
situation is
That's all right.
This episode of Ties made me think about how conscious the Sisters of Silence have to be with their equipment choice because of how they communicate. They have to have gauntlets with individual fingers or wear just leather gauntlets because they use sign language.
Right.
They
Yeah,
can
that's
use
a
big
nice.
closed gauntlets.
It wouldn't work. They need the fingers. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. And we haven't seen a Custodes arming scene before, have we? I like the close relationship between the Sisters of Silence and the Custodes as well. The kind of different aspects of the same unit. When I'm looking at Warhammer, I'm always sensitive to and interested in what their inspirations might have been, or not even as literal as that. Sometimes the designers will pick up on something that has a historical precedent, whether they know it or not. I mean, unless you sit down with the people who actually did the original design.
I'll just say this real quick. I haven't found any evidence of a female Custodes past 2022. So, that's just my research. If you know of anything like that, let me know, show me. But I haven't found any evidence of that past 2022. Year 2022, I should say. Anyways.
For this, and if in the off chance they remember what the inspirations were, it's hard to be sure. But the Custodes, of course, are really iconic for this very tall, non-anatomical helmet shape, you know, with a plume coming out of the top of it. And that's just always reminded me of certain early medieval West Asian, Russian, Belarus helmets that have been found. And
well, what you'll see, there's skulls out there. They have like elongated skulls. And let me say this, there's a reason why some of these tribes do cradle headboarding. You'll find some skulls out there that are natural, that have natural sutures and stuff like that with that. And there's people out there who show the difference. So there's a lot of these Nephilim had these cone-like heads. Look at like Nefertiti and what's the other guy? I can't remember the other Egyptian guy. But they have cone-like heads, right? So, that could be it. You'll see like in the Legend of Zelda, Link has this, you know, big cap. I don't know. I have no idea what that's supposed to mean. But there are caps like that, which could have been because of these elongated heads. I don't know. But anyways, you can go look that up. Look at like Paraka's skull. You can go look at, there are skulls you can go look at that have these. L.A. Marzulli, he's a guy that studies this a lot. So you can check him out.
in places like Belarus, the date from like the 10th and early 11th century, that's a replica of one of them. But they have often these quite high conical forms, and sometimes they've got horsehair plumes that come out of the top. And then, you know, the Custodes also have a kind of form that's suggestive of the nasal. I mean, some of these helmets of this period actually may not have had a nasal more often than not, so that might not, on that one might be wrong. I acquired this helmet mainly because it has a male aventail that was made by a good friend of mine, and I wanted an example of his work. So the real typology are really interesting, and that kind of West Asian, Eastern European armor is enormously interesting, but less well studied, certainly in the English language literature. But, you know, Warhammer, of course, we know, is hoovering up inspiration from just about anywhere, European, non-European, all cultures. So, you know, the Custodes having a certain kind of vaguely West Asian, Russian look about them. It's interesting. I don't know what it means, but I just thought it was interesting. And also this kind of very different lens shape, or the shape of their ocularium. That's a Warhammer word that doesn't get used in Warhammer. They always refer to eye lenses. Ocularium is the appropriate high Gothic word. So take note. That eye lenses and shoulder pads
something new every
are
day.
two Warhammer terms we need to expunge in favor of better terminology, just to continue to
Shoulder pads.
uphold my pedantic role here.
Hey, we love that role.
The Custodes also famous for using that signature combination weapon, the glaive or halberd that also has a bolt gun on it. It's important to note in reality that combination weapons are never really any good as either of the weapons they're claiming to be. Combining them usually reduces the effectiveness of either.
I was just getting ready to say the power of the of the shot, and then of both are reduced because it's when you build the foundation of it. You either got to have that high powered mechanism, like shooting, or sword. You can't, when you take away from one or the other, you know what I mean, it's not as powerful. Anyways, I'll let him explain it.
It makes the halberd too heavy, it makes the gun too hard to sight. But actually, again, in the stories, they make a point of saying that they're very difficult weapons to master. The main thing I'd be looking for in this fight is when does she use the blade and when does she use the firearm part of the weapon. And so
How do you
far,
reload
she
it?
hasn't really had time to shoot anything. It's been on her so fast, so it's all been the blade. It just kind of, I guess that's good.
One thing that I was interested to get your perspective of is the speed in which these massive armored figures can move. That scene does a great job of showcasing how fast a Custodes really is, but it does nothing to lessen
because she's a girl boss.
How imposing and bulky they are. They're like two contrasting elements.
We all
You
know
expect
girl
someone
bosses
big and
are
bulky to be
perfect.
slow.
Yeah, but they often aren't. Big, muscly wrestlers can move really fast sometimes. I appreciate it from that point of view just because it keeps breaking down this idea of heavily armored figures being slow and cumbersome. It need not be that way.
If you practice enough, you gain that, you'll see like football players, they'll train in their shoulder pads and all that. That's why they train and practice with shoulder, even though not so much nowadays. Used to be you wore those every practice, right? And you would run with them and stuff like that. And you can become fast with that gear on, So that's a lot of it too. Cardio and all that junk.
Warhammer, I mean, the armor is like a character. It's ever present in every aspect of this. And it's never once, stooped to play to those old, annoying stereotypes, those misconceptions that are so easy to recruit for humorous purposes or to relate to an audience's expectations. They never once go that low. They tell their own story according to their rules. And it kind of transcends the unfortunate modern stereotypes about armor. And so the armor is able then to do its real job for the story. The Custodes armor still, in this setting, looks a little more old-fashioned. It's still got a lot more kind of Great Crusade era kind of reference to it. And that's a nice character distinction as well. Things like these objects on the armor that look like a kind of respirator or an old 1930s style microphone or something. They've got like these bosses with vents in them, and then they've got a pair of tubes coming off of them. That's one of a number of features that you still see on her armor that isn't present on the Primaris Space Marines, and it just connects them with that older story, which is nice. And of course, the Roman style angular lightning bolts is very much part of the earlier period.
We're into time.
So before we get into this, I want to talk about, the helmet of salvation, right? Which is in, verse 17, where the sword of the Spirit is. And that's basically being saved, right? And it protects your mind, right? You see a lot of people who delve in occultism, their minds kind of drift up more and more. Not so much when they first start, but the older they get, man, it's like they start going off like something else is taken over, right? You'll see this like a lot with drug addicts, right? And in the book of Enoch, it talks about how they taught men the cutting of roots, which is this pharmakia aspect, taking drugs, right? And it, it opens you up, per se, right, to these principalities, these demons and stuff like that. And of course, the book of Enoch talks about how these demons proceeded from us, right? The demons are the Nephilim, right? The disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. And they're here on earth. And, they thirst and all that. So they want to experience that again, right? So they possess somebody. They find somebody to possess. And you'll see these people, man, like drug addicts and occultism stuff. It's like they're there. They have their personality and stuff like that. Sometimes multiple personality, disorder and stuff like that. Not saying it's always because of that, but there are some who did, and a lot of them have dealt with occultism. And a lot of them who kind of come out of that will tell you they delved in occultism, and they had these multiple personalities type stuff. But anyways,
Titans now.
Yes, we're back in the Siege of Terra now.
I wanted to look at some Titans, especially of this animation, because you get to see a lot of that knightly inspiration that they have with their houses, their colours.
Yeah,
their coat of arms.
that's a nice feature of them. That when you first come into, when you're new to Warhammer, you think, how do the knights, how do the Titans fit into the legions of the chapters? And the fact that they're this separate thing that forms allegiances and maybe long-term bonds with a particular legion or a particular chapter. It's quite clever that they're their own thing, because it harks back to medieval feudalism and the bonds of personal loyalty. It's not what country you come from, it's not what team you're on, it's your relationship between one individual and another individual, bonds between the family or bonds just between association. And to have the Titans have their technology is so powerful and so unique. They have to have this kind of separation. They can't just be subservient members of a particular organization.
If you look in the book of Enoch, it says some of these giants were 4,000 ells, right? And look at the Titans in Greek mythology; they were huge, So that's very interesting. And you had one of the punishments of the Watchers was to watch their children, end each other. So I'll bring that up real quick. The Watchers were the ones who came down Mount Hermon and then mated with women, created the Nephilim and all that. So if you don't know. Oops. Okay. Sorry, I'm looking for it. Okay. And Gabriel said to the Lord, proceed against the bastards and the reprobates and against the children of fornication and destroy the children of fornication. The fathers on their behalf, they hope to have eternal life, and each will have 500 years. And the Lord said unto Michael, go. Hold on a second, guys. Here we go. And who have united themselves with women, so have defiled themselves with them and all their uncleanness. And their sons have slain one another, and they have seen the destruction of their beloved ones Bind them fast for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth, to the day of their judgment and their consummation. To the judgment that is for, they shall be confined forever. And whosoever shall be condemned and destroyed will from thenceforth be bound together with them to the end of all generations. And destroy all the spirits of the reprobate of the children of the watchers, because they have wronged mankind. We saw they turned on mankind and ate them, right? But anyways.
Got to be their own thing. And that's very much in line with the way that military organization worked in the Middle Ages, where they're essentially private armies of particular families in particular regions. And yes, they have a kind of, a loyalty on paper to the king, but they may not go that way. And they have to be cajoled, they have to be negotiated, their loyalty has to be maintained, they have to be used well. They can't feel like they're just being thrown away for nothing. Their actions have to have meaning to maintain the bonds of loyalty and everything else. And I always have a sense in the Horus Heresy that the connections with the houses, they're potentially tenuous. Some are strong, like, the Legio Mortis is just always gonna go with Horus no matter what, and you're never gonna change that. But
they were called Mortis. That's
if they have a scary name, you can tell what side they're. If they have a noble, knightly name, you can tell what side they're on. And then on top of that, of course, the knight or the Titan is a metaphor for the knight in armor, the human augmented by advanced elite technology. And then on top of that, they ladle on the use of heraldry. Heraldry is used throughout Warhammer, but it's used in a very particular and especially kind of iconic way on the Titans.
Yeah, you can't get away from that. Those knightly inspirations when there's giant tilting shields.
Right.
Covered in heraldry and shoulder pads, and the helmets echoing old Earth helmets.
It's pretty, like a lot of things in Warhammer, it's pretty in your face, but that doesn't change, the cleverness of it. The fact that it's well observed and well researched and it's thought out. Someone spent time thinking about this.
This animation does a really great job of actually helping to cement the visualization of how massive these things are, and how to them troops are like ants. They're like stomping over them. But
they still need to be protected against them. You still need infantry to protect the area around the base of a Titan, or the infantry will get in.
I think one of the earlier Horus Heresy books, where Titans first start to really have a position on the battlefield, there's descriptions of enemies fighting up the legs.
Right.
And when I read that, I was envisioning like people fighting up a spiral staircase in an old medieval tower or something.
Right.
It's like the 40k version of that, except this tower is a leg and it's attached to a giant killing engine that's walking across a battlefield.
And I like in the animation too that when they give you a sense of the controls and the dynamic of how they work together, there's a commonality with like submarine warfare or naval warfare, or of course tank warfare, that they have to work together. They can't move fast, so they need to anticipate where they're going to need to turn. If they're facing the wrong direction, they might really be screwed, because they just aren't going to get around fast enough. And taking inspiration again from different...
Why are we walking backwards? You there, turn. Turn the torso, please.
Different kinds of naval warfare is a very perceptive thing to do when you're trying to make something totally preposterous seem plausible.
Yeah, a warship at full speed is all ahead full. A Titan, it's full stride.
I love in this too when they've gotten to the point when there's a sniper threat to the Titan. It's this enormous tank.
Baneblade.
In like a sniper hide. Again, it's the cleverness of scale.
So if it be a Stormblade or a Baneblade, but the super heavy tank of the Imperium.
But this taking like sonar readings and then dropping torpedoes into the area where you think something is, it reminded me again of submarines. And here you get a sense, even something that big has its vulnerabilities. Nothing's invulnerable. All armor has its weakness. If you're out there walking around, there's got to be a limit to the protective quality of your armor. And they make the...
I'll admit, I haven't really done too much research on the Titans. That might be something I could do next year, I think, is do some research on that and do a short on that and stuff.
Titans seem really vulnerable all of a sudden. they're sitting in this Titan and they're kind of panicking a little bit, you know. But everything has its weakness, you know. All troop types, all vehicle, they all have their strengths and weaknesses. And the cleverness, the good military commander finds the perfect balance of different arms and different troop types.
For the Emperor! For the Emperor!
This is Angels of Death. It's a Blood Angels series. Very stylized. It's all black and white, except for anything that should be red. But the black, white, and red gives this a very unique aesthetic.
Yeah, it's like Sin City or something.
Yeah.
I like it a lot, actually, in my opinion. The Blood Angels are probably my second favorite Legion. And I just thought that was pretty cool, pretty unique. All right, because they're all about that red and that blood, right? So it's a perfect aesthetic for it, in my opinion. From what I remember, one of the guys was part of the Death Watch, and he was going through the black, the Red Thirst and all that by himself. So he has these, he doesn't necessarily forgive his brothers for letting him go to the Death Watch, if I remember correctly. But anyways.
Color means that much more when it's largely absent.
It's nice that, because it focuses mostly around a single Blood Angel squad, but they all have their own unique characteristics. Despite largely being armored up, you could tell who's who, either by weapon, armor, actions, voice. That's one of the things.
So when does this take place now?
This is 40k.
40k,
yeah.
But the old helmets are still there.
That's one of the things that helps differentiate the squad members, is that they've all got a different helmet. Which I think when they're going for this style, right, it's primarily red that we're seeing. I think they needed to differentiate the characters with more than just voice and stature.
But you can do that. Individual armors look different. Once you get used to it, a particular helmet is just as distinctive as a particular face.
What do you think about the Terminator designs, the 40k Terminator designs?
Well, I haven't thought about them too much. I mean, I haven't built any. The Terminators in the Horus Heresy are much more variable. They're all kind of the same class, but from Legion to Legion, their kind of appearance and their characterization varies a lot. The 40k Terminators are much more kind of consistent. A very distinctive helmet shapes. It's an interesting question of, with a Space Marine, you already have something that's very heavily armored and hits very hard. What's the heavy version of that? In functional terms, they don't make a lot of sense, really. You would never need a double-barreled machine gun because your single-barreled machine gun already has such a high rate of fire. Having two of them doesn't really make any kind of sense, but as an expressive device, it helps make that distinction.
It's not only two bolters bolted together, it's two bolters bolted together that these giant Terminators can wield one-handed.
Yeah, and the fact that the Terminator armor is very technologically advanced, but now a very rare technology that can't be replicated. It's not just their gear. The Terminators themselves are veterans and have to have a certain amount of experience to be put into that gear. They find a number of different levels to distinguish them from the average Space Marine.
This is weirdly quite an emotional scene coming up with a Blood Angels Dreadnought. There's been a few games to feature Dreadnoughts and cinematics that go along with those games, like Dawn of War especially, but it's still been quite difficult to get a sense of how a Dreadnought moves or its mobility. This animation and one of the final scenes in Space Marine 2 do a great job of.
If you don't know, a lot of the injured or like barely hanging on Space Marines, they'll get put into these dreadnoughts in this sarcophagi thing. So
showing how mobile, how quick, and how dangerous a Dreadnought could be.
And how much character it can have, too.
I really enjoy these shots of the Tech Marine, because there's a number of times through this series where he's having to interact with the screen or a computer, a piece of machinery, and last bolts or auto guns are just plinking off him, and he doesn't even think about them.
It's the essence of using any armor is knowing the armor's capability. What do you actively have to deal with, and what can you ignore?
Even in the 41st millennium.
A Tech Marine's frustrated with technology.
A bit of a kinetic encouragement.
I like their kind of laminated faceplates. It's very distinctive. Tech Marines usually make great characters.
Depending on the chapter, they're sort of looked at with distrust because they've been away for so long.
Yeah. Right, questionable loyalty, maybe.
Yeah. Are you with us, or are you actually for the Mechanicus now? Yeah, this ending scene with the Dreadnought is sort of heart-wrenching.
There's not a lot left to him, really.
A Dreadnought saying they're cold. What a way to go. That was me. I was watching this like, yeah, cool action-packed 40k, and then, oh, you've made me feel emotion. Thanks for that. Didn't expect that, especially from a Dreadnought, but bravo for creating that moment.
Dreadnoughts, they often make great characters.
Dang, I got into that. Anyways, here's my stopping so I don't get copywritten.
I would have liked to see the skies of Baal one last time.
Thank you all for watching. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes featuring Dr. Capwell. Links to...
Okay. That's pretty much the end there, guys. I want to thank you guys for watching this and hearing my version of reactions and stuff like that. I am going to start taking out the ads and all that stuff, and we're just going to get right to it. If I need to, I'll put it in, the pinned comment. I am an affiliate with vidIQ now, so if you want your better, titles, that's what I've been using. My last 2 thumbnails was vidIQ. They got AI to help you with that, and it's really helpful. Let me tell you. I wish I would have known about this before. So if you're starting a YouTube channel, vidIQ is great. There's a subscription model to that, and I do get commissions for that. So thank you very much. Also, check out W Energy drinks at w.gg. They're jitterless, got plenty of flavors. Anyways, guys, thank you for those who liked the video, and if you didn't like it, thank you for at least giving me a chance. You have a wonderful day.